T's voice trembled with the frustration he tried to hide, and Tiny's cold distance echoed in every unspoken pause between them. Their conversation no longer sounded like a couple working through issues. It sounded like a marriage standing on a cliff, inching closer to the edge with every revelation. He tried to laugh things off, tried to pretend certain moments never happened, but Tiny wasn't letting anything slide. She remembered everything. And for the first time, the world was hearing T.I. admit the chemistry between them was something he couldn't recreate with anyone else. He insisted their bond was unmatched, a connection that couldn't be duplicated no matter who stepped into their lives. But beneath that declaration was a man terrified he was losing the one thing he always thought he'd have forever. For weeks, rumors circled like vultures. A secret DNA test. Betrayal behind closed doors. A fallout between Tiny and her lifelong friend Shakina. Fans wondered if T.I. would continue to stay silent or if he'd disappear from the public eye entirely. What they didn't expect was for him to emerge with a tone that was equal parts wounded and defiant. The self-proclaimed king of the South made it clear he wasn't stepping aside quietly. This wasn't a simple statement to calm the noise. It was a declaration that he was ready to expose the entire truth, even if it meant dragging the ruins of his personal life into the light. But behind that bravado was a man clearly shaken. A man who felt blindsided when the DNA results hit social media instead of remaining a private family matter. T.I. insisted the problem wasn't the test itself but its public exposure. If it had stayed within their home, he claimed, he and Tiny would have handled the situation privately. But that option vanished the second the results went viral, igniting a firestorm that neither of them could put out. Suddenly, fans weren't just speculating about infidelity. They were dissecting timelines, blaming Tiny, blaming T.I., and demanding answers from both sides. And instead of staying quiet, T.I. decided the world needed to hear from him directly. The DNA test allegedly proved what gossip bloggers had been whispering for weeks, confirming that Shakina's child was tied to a secret T.I. and Tiny had been fighting about behind closed doors. The news didn't just shake their marriage. It tore through their careers, their public image, and the carefully built family brand that once made them reality TV royalty. Endorsements disappeared overnight. Business opportunities stalled. Even radio stations turned their backs, refusing to play T's newest single while the scandal engulfed the internet. The empire they built together was crumbling, and neither of them seemed prepared for how quickly the fall would happen. Then came the moment T.I. cracked open the silence. An interview, darkly lit, stripped of theatrics, featuring a man who appeared determined but exhausted. He stared into the camera with a mix of regret and anger. He insisted he wasn't a monster and refused to carry the blame alone. He painted himself as a man betrayed by the people closest to him. Without naming names, he suggested Tiny had let emotions take over, spilling their private pain to the public in a moment of rage. He accused others of chasing clout, using his downfall as their ladder to online attention. And then, with a voice that trembled just enough to reveal the truth beneath the polished narrative, he implied that Tiny had intentionally let the DNA test slip into the hands of bloggers. It wasn't just a stumble in their marriage. It was, he claimed, a deliberate act. That single implication flipped the entire internet upside down. If Tiny really tried to hide the test, or worse, if someone in her circle leaked it without her consent, then the betrayal ran much deeper than anyone expected. Fans rushed to defend their favorite side. Some called T.I. manipulative, saying he was twisting the story to regain public sympathy. Others insisted Tiny knew exactly what she was doing, using the test to finally break free from a marriage filled with tension and unresolved secrets. Hashtags exploded. YouTube panels began streaming emergency discussions. And right in the middle of this online explosion, another voice emerged, louder and angrier than ever. Shakina jumped into the fight with a fiery Instagram live, dragging both T.I. and Tiny into a whirlwind of new allegations. She claimed T.I. had begged her to stay silent before the DNA leak, offering promises and money that never came. She hinted she had evidence, screenshots, and recordings that could ruin reputations completely. She accused Tiny of hiding behind a public image while privately manipulating situations to her advantage. And once she started talking, she didn't stop. Fans flocked to her live streams, hungry for details. It didn't matter whether she was right or wrong. The story's momentum was bigger than facts now. It was pure, unstoppable chaos. But the real shift happened behind the scenes. While T.I. battled the internet, the industry itself began to pull away. Partnerships worth millions dissolved quietly. Concert promoters backed out. Fellow artists unfollowed him, distancing themselves from the scandal to save their own reputations. It was the first time in T's career that influence couldn't save him. He wasn't the king in control anymore. He was the man being erased. Then, just as the internet thought he would fade away, T.I. dropped something unexpected. A cinematic Instagram video with no caption. Just imagery. Atlanta at sunrise. A lone figure walking. A crown lying on the ground. A whispered line about a king falling but rising again. Fans immediately began analyzing every frame, wondering if it was a hint at a documentary, a new album, or a confession piece designed to shift the narrative back in his favor. Insiders claimed it was part of a larger project titled Redemption, the real story. If true, T.I. wasn't just responding, he was planning a full-scale comeback. But Tiny answered in her own way. No interviews. No explanations. Just a single post. 12 quiet words that shook the internet more than T's entire interview. Her silence was powerful, steady, and unbothered. It told the world she didn't need a rebuttal. She didn't need a documentary or a dramatic speech. She didn't need to defend herself. Her calm confidence said everything. And so the dust began to settle. But the fallout was irreversible. Friendships fractured. Careers damaged. A marriage once seen as unbreakable now hanging by a thread. Shakina faded from the headlines, worn down from the chaos. T.I. continued trying to recover what was left of his legacy. And Tiny rebuilt her peace quietly, focusing on her children and her music while the world debated who to believe. The DNA test exposed far more than anyone expected. It revealed the cracks in loyalty, the dangers of fame, the fragility of empires built on secrets. T.I. may have spoken, but his words are now part of a story that won't be forgotten. Sometimes silence is more powerful than truth. And sometimes the truth arrives long after the damage is done.